Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Yellowjackets, the first 3 episodes specifically. This is a show that was on my kind of radar to catch up on. It had been recommended to me a bunch of times on YouTube and on Twitter back when it was airing, or maybe just after it aired. And after I went back and caught up with finishing Severance season 1, this was the next one that I wanted to check out. So I decided to do it in chunks and sort of watch 3 episodes, see how I felt, give some thoughts, and we'll see if I want to continue. But the premise of Yellowjackets, and I'll keep that spoiler free for a couple of minutes just to give you the idea of what it is in case you don't know, is a Showtime series which is set in 2 timelines. It's got a 1996 timeline, which is a group of high school girls, a soccer team, a football team, crashes, is in a plane crash, lands somewhere unknown, somewhere in the middle of the wilderness, presumably still in the US, but I'm not actually sure necessarily, but I think it is. And then the other part of the show is the 2021 timeline, which is some of these characters who are now middle-aged, have families or whatever, and it's kind of like all these hints as to what went on for them to survive. Like there's hints of it being very dark, that maybe some extreme things happened and none of them want to talk about it. So it's a bit of a mystery show with like an overarching thing, because we have some of it set in the present day, like long after they were marooned. There is like we know it was 18 months they were stranded, so we have kind of a complete full loop planned potentially for the show. It can't just run forever. They have to. I mean, I suppose they could tell us a lot of things happen in 18 months and they could keep going for a long time, but at the very least there is some idea of an end goal in sight, even from season 1. But that's the main gist of it. It's got a lot of teases and hints. Episode 1 in particular sort of hints at some of the darker stuff that's maybe going to happen in the maroon part of the show. Because the first episode, like, the girls don't get on the plane until towards the end of the episode. So there's actually 3 timelines technically in the first episode, because you've got before the crash, but you've got this little bit of just these teases of things from some time down the line. But from episode 2 onwards, it seems to be just sort of running sequentially from, after the crash. So that is the basic gist of it. I was also excited because Karen Kusama directed the first episode, and I really loved The Invitation. Some people have like really turned around in Jennifer's Body as well. I haven't went back and watched it again since it came out, but I loved The Invitation. So, I was pretty hopeful because it had a lot of buzz and people were really recommending it. If I was to, I guess that what I would say is that I'm intrigued by the show so far, and there's enough in it that I'm curious enough to keep watching for now. I wouldn't say that I love it yet, or that it's pulled me in and I'm like, it's not like with some other shows that do very quickly feel like, oh, I'm really into this and I'm really invested in what it's doing. I feel like so far I'm curious enough to keep going and sort of give it the full season to see where it goes and how it builds on its mysteries and stuff. I know Tim's watched the first season. He said that it got better as it went along, and it seems like the sort of show that would do that. Right now, there's definitely elements of some of the stories that I don't love all of it. Like there's a lot of relationship drama that I don't think is particularly captivating. Particularly in the 2021 timeline of the show, which is kind of a flip, because the first episode it was more guilty in the teenage stuff, because the teenage stuff had tons of it before, because it's a couple of days before the plane, and there was a lot of like setup of who's dating who and who's cheating on who, what the different characters are like. That said, though, the first episode does do a good job of establishing 4 or 5 of the characters, and there's a lot of characters. There's clearly like a sort of B tier of, I wouldn't say red shirts per se, but people who I'm not expecting to make it the whole way. One of the main characters, who's in the teenage part of the show, the 1996 part of the show, as of yet has not been in the 2021 part of the show, which would make me think, I won't say who it is until I go into spoilers, but it would make me think that she probably doesn't survive that part. But I mean, that could be like a misdirection. They could like suddenly reveal that she is around somewhere in present day, and it's not a spoiler to say she, because it's pretty much all girls. Like there's like 1 or 2 male cast members in the 1996 part, but it's because it's the girls' team, though. It's pretty much all girls. So yeah, like that's, you know, so there's some interesting stuff in teasing. Like, I think the most exciting part of this show for me so far, other than just the survival element of, okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? Now that we're stranded here, we have to look for food, we have to look for water, we've got some injured people we have to take care of. I like that kind of thing in shows typically when it's done well. And there's definitely bad examples of that. I watched the pilot for La Brea, like, whenever that debuted last year, and it was like a really bad show that was trying to be Lost. Like, it really wanted to be the new Lost, and it was just really, really bad. There's definitely some comparisons to make with Lost in this. Obviously, you got the plane itself, but I would say the jumping between the timelines is a little Lost-like as well. It does have a very different tone, though. I feel like Lost, this feels darker than Lost, and that the first episode really establishes by the end of it that things are going to get a little vicious in this marooned part of the timeline. And I think that leads to what I find the most interesting element of this show to be, which is the small hints in the 2021 part of the show. As much as I don't like some of the just the regular drama the characters are going through in that part of the show, it's the small hints and moments where it kind of shows how that experience changed them. Where Melanie Lynskey is one of the characters, she plays Shauna. She, like, there's little moments where she just looks like she's going to be violent, or the way she like skins a rabbit at one point. There's just these little moments of like, oh, like the way she views the world and the way she thinks about things. And, you know, all the characters in the 2021 part of the show aren't talking about this to anyone. They keep it all secret. They don't even try to let it contact each other, or if they do contact each other, really let anyone know that they're in contact with each other. It really sort of paints this mystery part of it, and they've all got these things they're ashamed of that they maybe did to survive in that time period. So their motivations in the future being kind of like teased at as a breadcrumb to what happened, I think is one of the more interesting aspects of the show. That stuff I'm a bit more into, and I like the survival stuff in the 1996 part of the timeline. You know, the marriage stuff with Shauna and her husband and the present day stuff so far, it's not the worst thing ever. I mean, it's amusing at times. There's a bit of role playing in episode 2 that's a little amusing, and I do like Melanie Lynskey as an actress, but the actual, you know, marriage drama is not that engaging. And it's the sort of thing where I can see it getting better as it goes, because right now it is just like a bit more typical, but as maybe we go forward and we unpack it a bit more and we maybe move on to newer ideas that are more unique to the show, with like whatever happens, whatever the outcome is of this early stuff is, I could see it changing significantly. And there's another character, Thaisa, who is like running for, I think it was a mayor or something like that, but she's a politician, and she's got a wife, and she's got a son. The son's going through some stuff, and, you know, again, it's okay, but I'm not like feeling it that much. And then the other sort of main grouping in the present day stuff is two characters, two of the bigger actors in the show actually. You got Christina Ricci, who plays Misty, and Juliette Lewis, who plays Natalie, and they're kind of an unlikely duo who were both the girls again on the team, but they're actually kind of investigating stuff a little bit in these early episodes. So I think inherently, from a mystery point of view, their stuff is more exciting, as I would say. Especially since the dynamic's also very different. And my cat is scratching at a box, and it's very distracting. So yeah, that's kind of the general feelings I have in the first 3 episodes. I do think there's some interesting character dynamics. There's Misty as a character is interesting. In seeing something she does in episode 2, I thought was an inspired little touch to kind of motivate some of the, you know, whereas, I mean, I didn't get spoilers to talk about any of this, so I guess I'm giving the spoiler warning now. But I would say that I'm intrigued by the show. I like enough of it to keep going. I will say that I do feel the runtime's a little bit in the episodes, and I think that is down to the drama. And these Showtime shows, like, wanting to be a full 60 minutes pretty much every time. You know, just a little 5 minutes trim, just to tighten it up and just make it a little bit punchier might benefit it. But, you know, it is what it is. So So spoilers then for the show, so I can talk about the different things. Yeah, Misty's an interesting character because you don't see Christina Ricci in episode 1 till quite near the end. You see her younger self, who's kind of this loner character, but she really comes into herself in episode 2 because she's this character who is a bit of a nerd and also a bit weird, but she is like, studied first aid, she studied survival things, so she ends up being really essential. She has a lot of like initial like plans of action when they're first crashed, like how to deal with some of the injuries and how to ration out things, and this is how we should do this. And it's like, okay, so this is interesting. You're seeing kind of how she is, although there's definitely hints she's a bit unhinged in the future stuff, where Christina Ricci's like, she's working at an old folks home and she's like threatening the old person and stuff like that. But it reveals at the end of episode 1, because I mean the big main thing I should tell you is that in episode 1 it reveals that at some point in this maroon timeline, probably near the end, they're going to become cannibals, and they're actually going to kill one of their own so they can cook her and eat her. And they're all wearing like these creepy outfits, like they've sort of made like almost tribal outfits. And it reveals that the leader who's been kind of orchestrating this in these scenes is Misty, so she's the one who kind of takes the lead in this like weird tribe that they end up forming that is, being cannibalistic to survive. So it does obviously there's probably going to be more to this, and maybe there's going to be some other things going on, but so it kind of sets up, it's a surprise that she ends up like, by the end of episode 1 she's been kind of a minor character, but then suddenly at the end it's like, oh no, she's like a major deal, like she's going to be really important. And then in episode 2, in the 1996 stuff, you see that she is picked on, that people think she's weird. But towards the end of the episode, some of the other girls, like she overhears them when she's going to the bathroom. And by bathroom, I mean a bush. But she hears some of the girls say, Misty's kind of weird, but thankfully, I'm so glad she's here because we'd be screwed without her. And it's this idea that she feels needed for the first time, and that she feels that she's wanted, and she sees this as like a real opportunity to sort of raise her stock with everyone else and her peers. And right after this is where she finds the flight recorder, the black box, and it's beeping and it says don't open it. And obviously this is instrumental to them being rescued, and she makes the choice to bash it with a rock and pull out the cables and deactivate it essentially. And I don't necessarily think she is hoping in this moment that they're going to be stranded here because of this for 18 months. I think she's thinking this will delay it a little bit. Maybe this will take a week instead of a day to get rescued because of this, or whatever it may be. So I'm not sure. I mean, maybe she was hoping it was going to be that long. I don't know. Maybe she was hoping it'd be forever. But it was an interesting sort of thing because it was like instantly she is kind of this villainous character, because everything that's going to happen might have been avoidable had that flight recorder not been tampered with. So I thought that character dynamic with her is interesting. And then when you see her in present day as Christina Ricci, and she's like, dating different guys, and she's not having a great time of it, but she's got this kind of weird, quirky, like take charge kind of thing going on, and no one seems to like her very much. She interacts mainly with Natalie, which is Juliette Lewis's character. She's just at a rehab, and she's received a postcard with a symbol on it, and the symbol seems related to the woods and like something that happened when they were there, to the cult or the tribe or whatever. She blames Misty for it. She comes to kill Misty, or at least threaten her, but then Misty reveals that she got one too. So someone's sending these out, and so either someone knows or it's one of the group, so they're kind of like curious as to who it is. But Misty's been researching where the other ones are, because most of them have tried to stay separate from each other. And she, it turns out that like the one sort of teenage boy who's kind of there on the plane that's in the 1996 period, Travis, there's something between Natalie and him, and she wants to go find him, and that's kind of a big chunk of episode 3. That has a sort of dark end to that plot because he commits suicide. Well, he seemingly commits suicide by hanging himself. Natalie doesn't believe that though. It's quite dark if he did, because Natalie calls him in episode 2 and says, hey, hey Travis, and he's like, oh, you must have a wrong number. And then it looks like in the next episode that he's had a drink and he's went out and killed himself at the place that he works, at a ranch. So like, either he really didn't want to be found, or someone else has done this. You know, Natalie doesn't believe it's a suicide, and you know maybe there's truth to that. Like it's so early right now that I can't say she's just in denial. Maybe she is in denial and it is just a suicide. There's power in both, but there's obviously a lot of mystery to unfold still, so it's really quite hard to say. Misty just likes solving mysteries. If anything, like her name feels a bit on the nose because of that. She says she's in like a club that try to solve cold cases on the internet and stuff like that. But you know, she's very malicious. You know, like much like she pulled the cables out of the flight recorder, she does it to Natalie's car so that Natalie has to go with her and Misty's car so that Misty gets to go on this road trip. She's kind of manipulated her into that, and that kind of mirrors what she did in the past. So you know, she's pretty well set up at this point for the type of character that she is. Yeah, so there's some interesting stuff going on there. The other characters, you know, Shauna, Melanie Lynskey's character, you know, as a teenager, she was actually cheating with Jackie, which is Ella Purnell's character. Jackie's the one who's not in 2021 as of yet. So it seems like she might not make it out of the past timeline, or they're keeping it close to the chest and maybe they'll surprise us later. But Jackie actually feels like she's going to be like the most prominent character because she's the first character we actually get to meet in the 1996 part of the show. She's the first one we cut to. And from there, she ends up like, you know, our best friend is Shauna, but then Shauna, it turns out, is actually having sex with her boyfriend behind her back, and that sort of sets up this idea of guilt. And there's a lot of stuff in episode 2 where they're admitting like guilty things that, you know, maybe this is karma for something they've done. There's the one religious girl who thinks that it's her fault because she called someone a c-word. And I'm only censoring that because YouTube wouldn't like it, not because I have a problem saying it. But yeah, it's and that stuff's a little bit tedious in episode 1. And obviously we find out that she's married to this guy, Shauna, that is. Shauna's married to this guy, to Jackie's boyfriend when they're older. They've got a teenage daughter, and he's working late a lot. Like, she thinks he's cheating on her, and she follows him in episode 3 and kind of confirms that suspicion. This stuff is just kind of so that, like, her getting like frustrated and killing the rabbit and cooking it for dinner. I like that moment. I like that because it kind of felt like, okay, it was sort of bringing these things out and giving you a hint of like this part of herself, like all these things that these characters have went through on that, you know, when they were marooned, and the regular life is kind of warped because of it is pretty fascinating. So the other part of her story though is that she runs into a guy, literally, in fact, she has a minor car accident with this other guy, and he tries to flirt with her. She kind of turns him down because she's married, but she didn't say that notably. But obviously, he runs into her again when she's following her husband to a hotel to confirm that he's cheating on her. This guy happens to be there, and it's a little bit suspicious. Like, I'm kind of expecting him to have some motives, or already know who she is, or that he's looking into what happened in the plane crash or something, because it feels a little coincidental that he was just here. So I'm very suspicious about that. But he's otherwise quite charming, and it seems like, she was resisting it before, but by the end of episode 3, she is getting into a room with them, so it's kind of implying that she is choosing to do this. And I mean, at this point, her husband's already cheating on her, so I suppose, why not? I guess. And speaking of being suspicious of people looking into what happened, there's a woman in episode 1 trying to talk to Shauna, who claims to be a journalist who wants to help her write a book about what happened, says it'll make a lot of money. It's revealed in episode 3 that she's actually working for Taisha, who is, she's running for mayor or whatever it is, but she's got her looking into the other survivors because they're trying to find like which one might be up to something or who might be talking about it. So, it kind of like, we kind of know the score to an extent now as to who she is, this woman, but that was kind of a reveal in episode 3. Taisha's stuff is again, it's kind of similar to Shauna, and there's like small parts of it that are interesting. Like her son's like seeing someone creepy outside his window, We're not sure if that's real per se, but he's acting kind of weird. He's talking kind of creepy. He kind of attacks a kid at the park and is very unapologetic about it. He's trying to kind of like cope with the idea that people don't like his mother because one of the kids says something about her. Because there's this like campaign ad that's run that calls her a cannibal because she's cannibalizing the taxpayers' money. But of course, like, knowing that in some level she was being a cannibal during this maroon period of her life, it has a bit of a sting to it. So it's I think that's maybe the thing that's letting down the show a little bit and just making it not as tight as it could be, is that it is some of this like present day drama stuff. It does feel like it's padding out the runtime just a touch. Now, not all of it. Like, some of it does feel like it's there because we have to have the characters, like, something prodding them into action or into whatever is going to sort of start to unwind and sort of reveal things about the past. Because like, at one point, Shauna calls Taija and says, "Hey, you're on TV. We're meant to be keeping a low profile. And also, this woman was here talking to me today." And so on and so on. Similarly, in episode 3, when Natalie and Nat get arrested, she calls Taija to try and get her help to bail out. Like, there's like these little things between them, and it's like, okay, but if Jackie is alive, like, she's probably the prime suspect for whoever's like messing with the rest of them, because clearly, like, whoever's messing with everyone else might have had like a worse time or came out worse from it. Maybe they thought she died on the island, or I don't even know. It might not be an island. That's Lost coming back into my brain because I'm thinking of Lost. Because they might think she died during this time. Maybe she didn't. Maybe there's someone they thought died but didn't, and now they've appeared back in the world and are starting to pick at them and prod them with these cryptic messages and whatever. Like, I see potentially. What I don't know right now is I don't know like how far this is going to go. Is there anything remotely supernatural about this show? Not that I've seen any hints of it per se, but I'm wondering if there's like more to, like, because when we see them in episode 1 and they've got these outfits on and they're eating someone, like, it does feel like, oh man, they're really far gone. Like, and these, because the symbol that gets sent to them is already on like one of the rocks or the trees as soon as they land. So that symbol like predates them being in this location. And it got me wondering if like there's something about this location or something about maybe people who are already there in secret or something that's going to influence them. I don't know, because they find the lake, of course, in episode 3, and they find the cabin, and there's like a dead body. We see that at the end of the episode up in the sort of the attic area. And maybe like, I don't know, maybe there's something already here, and I don't know if it is supernatural per se or just other people or whatever, but I do wonder if there's more to it than just things get so difficult that they end up like forming this weird tribe and starting to eat each other. There's definitely, and there's conversations of rationing the food in this first couple of episodes, and one of the coaches who did survive but had to get his leg chopped off. And I say had to. I mean, I could say Misty's just, a bit too gung-ho about it, but I think she was right. His leg looked pretty... When they pulled him out from underneath like the debris of the plane, it was pretty disgusting looking, and the way it sort of, like, part of his leg sort of dragged and stayed back, it was like, nah, that needs amputated. That needs to be closed up and whatever. So he's having a hard time dealing with that. He's crying and weeping in episode 3 about it. That he feels weak, that he can't contribute. He wishes that he died in the plane. I mean, if anything, he's my number one candidate for the first person they eat, because they've unfortunately already buried everyone else that died in the plane crash. So I don't think they're going to be very edible now. But maybe he'll last long enough that they'll be hungry, and someone will, probably Misty, will suggest that cannibalism is the way to go. Break out the barbecue. I don't know, but it's interesting. So the survival stuff is fun though. The survival stuff and like them figuring out things. I do appreciate as well that even though it's a bit of a drama thing, because so that one of the girls can be mad at the other one for a while, I did actually really like at the start of episode 2 when they're crash landing and they're kind of getting off the plane before part of it blows up. Like the goalie, the redhead, she's like trapped and she can't get her seatbelt off, and Shauna's trying to help her, and it's actually Jackie who says, "No, we have to go. There's not enough time," and pulls Shauna back, and they run off the plane. And then a minute later, the goalie girl actually did get out, and now obviously hates Jackie for leaving her to die, and there's a bit of a tension there. I actually like when it revealed she did survive, and that now this tension is going to be here. I actually appreciated that because I don't know if I've seen that be done before, where someone, or maybe I have, I don't know, but I can't think of any examples. But I thought it was a neat little twist on all of the events happen, because I thought it was going to be Shauna was going to feel guilty about leaving her, and that would create tension between Shauna and Jackie, which we end up getting tension between them anyway for various reasons. Although they're hugging by the end of episode 3 again. But I was genuinely thought, oh, that's a neat little touch. That's a neat little twist on things. And the characters vote if they should like move to the lake or stay by the plane for where the rescue comes. But I think at that point it's already been 3 days, and everyone's kind of on edge. They're worried. I'd probably say that I liked episode 2 the most out of the 3 so far, but it's probably quite close between that and 3. I think 3, the survival stuff in 3 is probably a little bit better than 2. But I did think like the Misty choice to like destroy the flight recorder was probably the best moment of the show so far, because it was a really good little character moment that was quite insidious and selfish, but played into like what they set up all episode about how she is and her need to feel wanted and that kind of thing. So I do appreciate that, and I do think the show has a good cast by and large. Obviously, you've got the more famous names and some of the adults. A couple of the younger ones I have seen in things recently, so like Scream 5, the younger Thais and that. Ella Purnell plays Jackie, who is in Army of the Dead. So there's a few faces popping up from other things that I recognise. But obviously, Christina Ricci, Melanie Lynskey, and Juliette Lewis are the names. I don't know if I know... I feel like I probably do recognise Tawny Cypress, who plays older Taija. I feel like I probably have seen her in something, because she does look familiar, but I couldn't tell you what off the top of my head. I'm just having a quick glance at her IMDb and seeing if anything sticks out to me. Oh, she was a couple episodes of Supergirl. I probably saw her in that, assuming it wasn't late episodes, because I did stop watching it at one point. She was in Heroes. Early Heroes as well, so I probably did see her in that. Oh well, I was just curious, because she did look kind of familiar as well, even though I couldn't name her. Yeah, I'm intrigued by the show so far. I'm intrigued by the show. Obviously I've not talked about every little detail, and I probably won't, for this season, just because, like, I'm doing these batches of episodes together. I'm just sort of giving my overall kind of feelings at each check-in, if you will. So, and it's not like when I say the relationship drama is dragging it down a little bit. It's not terrible. Like I've seen much worse. I have, but this was recommended to me so much, and getting so much good buzz online that I was kind of expecting it to be like an instant kind of grab me by the balls and like, oh, you're into this now. Like this is something that is just immediately captivating, and I don't know if it is quite there. Like it is very like. It's got a lot of potential. It's got some promise. It's definitely a much darker show than something like Lost, even though you can compare it because of the mystery elements and like sort of try to figure out what's going on and all the things they're probably going to reveal over the season. And I know it's been renewed for season 2, which is cool. But at the same time, like because it reveals the cannibalist side of what it's going to do in episode 1. Immediately there's this kind of like dark overtone to everything where this is going to go very bad. It's still a bit pulpy, but it's not going to be pulpy fun necessarily like Lost was. This is going to go down a dark path. And for the most part, I'd say most of the 2021 stuff does have this like, these undertones of everything's kind of miserable and dark. So it's definitely not a lighthearted show by any means. It's hinting at things, and there's suicide, there's cannibalism. There's just misery abounding left and right, But Tim did tell me it got better as it went. People do recommend it a lot, so I am hopeful that I'm going to get more into it as it goes. Right now, it's got my curiosity. All right, it's got my curiosity. Doesn't quite have my attention, but it's got my curiosity. So enough that I'm going to at least check out some more episodes. So the plan probably is to come back and talk about it again a little bit after probably ep 7. I'll probably do like the next 4, check in, and then do the last 3, assuming I want to finish the season. But I think at that point I'll probably want to. But yeah, so yeah, not a bad show. I'm definitely liking the cast, and I'm liking some of the stylistic choices in the direction. And what I thought was interesting is episode 3 had like an opening title sequence after 1 and 2 didn't. It's not irregular for episode 1 to not have an opening title sequence, and then following episodes do. Often pilots are made way in advance, so they don't have them yet, and they never bother editing them back in sometimes. But this had it in episode 3 to the point where I thought it was going to do something like meta or something, but it's just an opening title sequence. So I was like, okay, fair enough. So yeah, just an odd observation on that. But yeah, like the cast, like some of the mystery. I do feel a little bit of the episodes. I don't want to say dragging. That's maybe a little harsh, but just could do with maybe a little tightening. I would say, but that is my general feelings after 3 episodes of Yellowjackets, and I will watch some more and be back with another video, possibly later this week. I'd say at worst a week from now. From this, but these first 3 episodes I watched 1 per day, so if I keep up that, then possibly by the end of the week. But I do have another pilot to do this week, so we'll see how that goes. But hopefully, if you enjoy the show, or you were curious as to what I was going to think about it, yeah, you've enjoyed my thoughts. But let me know what you think of the first 3 episodes. Obviously, please do keep any spoilers for later episodes out the chat. I especially like the idea that someone can watch this if they've only watched the first 3 episodes, and sort of join in the conversation at the checkpoints, if you will, of the season. So not just for my sake, but also other chatters' sake. But that is me. So thank you very much for joining me. If you want to ask me about any scenes that I didn't bring up, because there's definitely a bunch of them. I could have probably went into like a lot of detail about the weird attempt at sexual play in episode 2 between Shauna and her husband, but alas, we must move on for the sake of brevity. So thank you very much for joining me. You can of course support everything we do by hitting the super thanks button under the video, or going to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and supporting everything over there. And if you are a patron, make sure you go vote in the pilot vote. If you're in the $10 tier or above, the pilot vote for next month is up right now, so go and vote on which pilots you want me to give priority to next month for review. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?